Minister Pravin Gordhan appears on day one of the SARS inquiry, describing a revenue service once free of corruption. Northern Cape residents air their views on land reform as nationwide hearings get underway in the town of Springbok. This is eNews at 8. I'm Sally Burdett. Good evening. Former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan kicked off the inquiry into South Africa's revenue service today. The first witness, he painted a picture of a tax authority once regarded as a model for transformation and efficiency. But since then, SARS has been rocked by a number of scandals. Retired Judge Robert Nugent has been appointed as the inquiry's commissioner to find out where the revenue service went wrong. Our reporter Heidi Jokos has the details of day one of the Commission of Inquiry into Tax Administration and Governance at SARS.
Gordhan said during his tenure at SARS, the revenue service was a world-class, efficient tax administrator.
Much of the journey was guided by the fact that integrity was an important part of what we did. So very early on, probably 98, 99, we stopped all SARS staff from receiving gifts of any kind, including if you stole a toilet paper, you'd face tough disciplinary action. And that inculcated a culture, possibly of apprehension on the one hand, but certainly spread the message across the organization that we will not tolerate corruption in any form whatsoever.
The revenue service is currently facing a massive revenue shortfall of about 50 billion rand, with questions around the systems and structures implemented by suspended Commissioner Tom Moyane. Moyane was appointed as the tax boss in September 2014 until his suspension this year. Moyane called in a consultancy firm to restructure the revenue service.
On the 15th of December 2015, we visited SARS and met with Mr. Moyane, the then commissioner. And I have a photocopy of the notes that I took during that time and shared 10 things with him, which he confirmed by email. And one of which was that I want to understand the new operating model suggested by this consulting firm, Bain, better. Firstly. Secondly, stop making changes until I understand this, the new operating model and why it is necessary. And thirdly, I mean, you've seen, and the world has seen, the benefits of institutions like the Large Business Center, for example. And it appeared at the time that that was in the process of being dismantled, if not dismantled. And the new concentration of power, if you like, was taking place in certain parts of the new operating model as well.
Staff reduction at SARS has also been red flagged, declining from 14,000 to 12,600. Judge Nugent says the commission is a matter of urgency. Preliminary findings need to be submitted by the end of September. The hearings will continue until Friday. Heidi Jokos, Pretoria.
Public hearings on land reform have kicked off in Springbok in the Northern Cape. The Constitutional Review Committee will be holding hearings across the country. It's an opportunity for all South Africans to air their views on land expropriation without compensation. It was an emotional day for these community members who came to speak to the committee.
You can come with title deeds and what kind of documents and stuff and arguments and guns and whatever you come with. We still say we don't recognize that legislation. You have taken the land away from us illegally.
Yes, we want our land and we want it now. We have waited 16 years for the Transformation of Rural Areas Act 9, which has been referred to at this podium since we started this process this morning. 16 years we've waited. We cannot wait anymore. Yes, people, we want our land. But we do not want you to disposition our fellow people in our country without compensation to do that.
There is no need to change the Constitution, and our Farmers Association feels the same way about that. We need to finish the transformation process. We need to get people the land back. The community of Concordia and the farming community which we represent, our organization, feels very strongly that we need to get the processes that were started 16, 17 years ago and hasn't been finished. And even though we want to have that process finished, we hit a wall that's impenetrable at government level.
Sad news of the death of another Sibanye-Stillwater miner today. Preliminary information suggests the man died after colliding with a scraper machine this morning at the Driefontein gold mine on the West Rand. Now, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources wants Sibanye-Stillwater's licence revoked and the mine to be placed under curatorship. This morning's fatality brings the deaths at Sibanye-Stillwater's mining operations to 21 people since February. More than half of the men have died in the last 8 weeks. Sibanye-Stillwater spokesperson says the alarming surge in deaths this year is unprecedented. The company's management is planning a summit on Friday to tackle the crisis. Unions believe there's a massive problem with health and safety standards at the mines.
We believe that there is a system failure. There is no mine that can kill in the short space 21 people, and the government is not shaken about it. We've made several clearing calls to the state president requesting his intervention because the government is a regulator and furthermore are the custodian of these minerals. These workers are contributing to the GDP of this country. Hence, we are saying as AMCO, this is a crime against humanity.
Still ahead on eNews, farmers and farm workers march together against cheap sugar imports, which they say are destroying their livelihoods. Today, farmers and workers march side by side in Pretoria. They're calling on government to protect the local sugar industry from cheap imports. Lorenzo Tembo has more on the story.
Foreign sugar has left a bad taste in the mouths of these demonstrators. For some, working the cane fields has been their only source of income. Others have invested their life savings into entering the sugar market. But with more sugar coming in from Brazil, Thailand and even the UAE, these farmers are growing desperate and are calling on the government to step in.
At the moment, the levels are too high. In the 17 year, there was 500,000 tons of sugar that was imported. And that's 25% of the industry, or in fact nearly 30%. So it could close down. If that continues, it could close down 3 mills.
The sugarcane industry says the cheap imports flooding South Africa are killing the industry, claiming that over 350,000 jobs are at stake.
Every hardship that hits the industry hits you hard because there are no reserves that you are going to go to and balance yourself with. It hits you hard and you stumble and you fizzle out.
Picketers also called on industry leaders to ensure their organizations buy local.
Our sugar is as sweet as any other sugar from anywhere.
Officials admit more must be done to protect the industry, which contributes 15 billion rand annually to the economy.
I've just spoken to the Commission, which is looking at the tariff application and looking at putting on more protection for the industry. I just spoke to the Commissioner and he has told me that they are fast-tracking this matter.
A tariff increase of $300 per ton has been proposed to discourage imports. Lorenzo Tembo, Pretoria.
The recent spiralling of cash-in-transit heists has authorities concerned. While the police minister is promising to make arrests, it's clear these gangs are highly organised. Now, tonight at 10 p.m. on ETV, investigative programme Checkpoint takes a closer look. Now, they were able to speak to a member of a cash-in-transit heist gang. Here, he explains how they identify targets and carry out their attacks.
kuba khona umuntu ophakathi osebenzela i-security company osipha umsebenzi uthole futhi imoto esizibhekela yona. Siyibheka kanjani imoto esuka endaweni ethize i-collect endaweni ethize kuba nomuntu oyi-1 leyo nyanga leyo oyibheka leyo moto leyo ukuthi i-collector ey'bhuthini ezingakhi. Now siyazi ukuthi imoto esebenza around leyo area leyo yiphi idepo yayo egcineni belipheleliphi. Kuba khona umuntu oshayisayo nakashayisa noma yini ingenzakala uthola komanye ama-cases umuntu oshayisayo i-airbag imshayile wagcina adizi. Abantu abaphansi yibo kumele bamkhiphe bamfake ekarini and then ozochumisa usondela emotweni yama-security ayichumise naseyichumile. Abanye abantu khumbula akahlukanga wonke umuntu, abanye abantu bazifihlile endaweni zabo kuyipoti zabo basondela imoto naseyichumile and then icala iyatrainwa ke.
Chilling stuff. The investigative team also spoke to cash van security guards who risk their lives every day, and they track down the people who sell explosives to the heist gangs. Catch the full story on Checkpoint tonight at 10 o'clock on ETV. Let's move now to international news, and the US Supreme Court has approved Donald Trump's controversial travel ban. Now, the ban prohibits most people from majority Muslim nations Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria and Yemen from entering the US. It's been widely criticized by refugee and human rights groups. The decision is viewed as a victory for the US president, who responded on Twitter saying, "Wow." For the first time in nearly 2 decades, officials from Ethiopia and Eritrea are meeting. The high-level visit is raising hopes that a military standoff between the neighbouring countries will come to an end. Ethiopia's Prime Minister greeted an Eritrean delegation in Addis Ababa today. Olympic athletes, singers, actors and religious leaders were also at the airport. Eritrean Foreign Minister Osman Saleh and other top officials were greeted with garlands of flowers. Now, Eritrea won independence from Ethiopia in 1993, but conflict erupted again in 1998 over their disputed border. Diplomatic relations between the two nations have broken off since then. Let's recap your top stories. Minister Pravin Gordhan appears on day 1 at the SARS inquiry, describing a revenue service once free of corruption. Northern Cape residents air their views on land reform as nationwide hearings get underway in the town of Springbok. After the break, we've got your sports news. We'll update you on the Nigeria match, and Peru dump Australia out of the World Cup after their 2-0 win in Sochi.
Good evening, everyone. After a couple of mostly settled days over the country, another cold front is on its way, and it will be making landfall over the southwest coast of the country during the course of Wednesday morning. It is going to be a wet commute for Cape Townians as well as some of the surrounding areas. But by afternoon, that area will be clearer. A few showers will be spreading into the Eastern Cape as the cold front moves eastwards, while colder air will be in place all across the southern parts of the country. In the north, on the other hand, it will be a mostly clear and relatively warm afternoon. Here's a look at the Northern Cape, and it's going to be a sunny day for some areas, but westwards we see some cloud. Light rain pushes up the escarpments from Sutherland, reaching Springbok towards the evening. It's going to be a wintry Wednesday for much of the Western Cape, including the mother city, but for this area, some sunshine could come through before sunset as the rain clears from the western parts as the day goes on. We're going to have rain reaching parts of the Eastern Cape in the form of showers. Those will be fairly light. And Tata, you have a possibility of rain as well, and a maximum temperature of 25 degrees. KwaZulu-Natal will be mostly sunny and dry. It's going to be a warm afternoon for just about all of the province, and it will also be slightly warmer into much of Mpumalanga, but still quite cool on the Highveld for eMakazeni and Ermelo, both reaching a high of 17. Cool as well for Polokwane at 21, but for the low-veld areas of Limpopo, temperatures climb into the mid-20s. Not too bad in the northwest for the afternoon. A little bit of cloud over the area, but there won't be any rain. And we'll also see cloud development in the Free State, but it stays dry, and it's going to be another cool day for Bethlehem with a minimum of 1 and a high of only 17. And finally, for Gauteng, some good news is that the temperatures will be slightly higher on Wednesday afternoon than they were today. Let's look ahead to your conditions for Thursday. And the cold front will make its way up the east coast, bringing a few drops of rain to parts of KwaZulu-Natal, while in the west, temperatures will be higher under partly cloudy conditions. But that's likely to change on Friday with another cold front brushing along the southern coastline, while it's going to be sunny and mild for Johannesburg and Pretoria.
And finally, Parliament's looking for a new bartender to quench the thirst of our country's lawmakers. The job was listed in advertisements released by the legislature last week. So do you have what it takes? Lester Kivet takes a look.
Parliament is hiring, and among the vacancies, a job as the new parliamentary bartender. It's a job with a pretty decent paycheck, but a Parliament bar, you ask? Those who know say it's not uncommon for major companies and large organizations to have a permanent bartender on the payroll.
There's many big companies that actually do offer positions for mixologists or bartenders or bar managers.
Part of the job would obviously be to lend an ear to weary MPs. Naidu says aspirant bartenders are taught to listen and empathize.
A bartender will always be a good listener and a true friend. Yeah, listening to people tends to come with the territory.
But Parliament says...
That sounds like a lot of fun. Get your applications in by Friday. That's where we'll leave it tonight. Take care and good night.